All right, let's get into day two. I will probably talk less on the technical stuff and just do more building today because let's face it, there's no point in me talking about budgets and things like that because the internet has led you to believe that it costs a ton of money to build an FE, and it doesn't matter how many times I show you on video that you can build an FEs for cheap, people still tell me it can't be done. So we're not even going to talk about it anymore. We're just going to build an FE. I'm going to show you a few little tips and tricks, and we're just going to get Betty White put back together and go after it today. So let's get into it.
I'd say it's a nut job.
All right, so in the last video, got the crank in here. It is very easy to turn. You can turn it with one finger. Of course, you can feel drag on it. You should. But, yeah, one finger. You can spin the crank very easily. And this is important. It's important to do this. A lot of people don't like to do this, but it's important to do this. And I'll explain why. I always rotate my rotating assembly as I put it together. I personally will rotate that engine like that several times. Just round and round and round and round and round with nothing in it. I'll put a rod and piston in. I'll rotate that engine. Rod and piston, rotate that engine. Now, yes, as you put pistons in, of course, there's rings that seal to the wall. There's going to be drag on it. It's going to start getting harder and harder to turn. It's hard to explain in words, but yes, it's going to get harder to turn, but it's just because of the drag of the rings and things of that nature, more bearings, tightening down, all that stuff. It will get a little harder to turn, but it shouldn't get hard to turn. Again, it's hard to explain, but what I will say is if you will do this, rotate it like that with nothing on it. Put one rod and piston in, rotate it. Put another rod and piston in, rotate it. You can kind of tell how it gradually gets a little stiffer, I guess is the right way to put it. But if all of a sudden it goes from to, you've got a problem. And if you do it one at a time like that, you know exactly where that problem's at because it rotated fine until you put that last one in. Stop immediately. If it ever gets to the point where one of them feels drastically different, stop. There's something off. Pull it back apart, look at that one. There's something wrong there. These are the little things that will help an engine live. At the end of the day, it ain't always about making the most power. In a race car, you want to make as much as you can, but you also want it to live as long as possible. So take the time to make sure you're putting the effort into things that make it live. All right, I don't have my lapel mic on, so I'll try to speak up to make the volume so you can hear it. I want to explain a couple of terms as I'm putting this engine together that you may hear and you may not understand exactly what they mean or why they are done or why they're not done. So I've got almost the entire rotating assembly put together. I got to throw one more piston in, two more pistons in, and I'll have it done. But I want to take a moment to explain something to you. The term zero decking a block and what that means and why you would do it. These are custom made DSS forged pistons. I rotated it around. I didn't put a dial on it to make sure I was dead zero, but now there's reasons to zero deck and there's reasons not to zero deck a block. First off, what does zero deck mean? Zero deck means that the piston sets exactly, the top of the piston is exactly the same as the top of the deck on the block right here. This is the deck on your block. So zero deck means that you have put this in a machine that cuts this. It's the same machine that does heads, and have cut this down to where the piston and the block are exactly the same. There's no drop off here. Most pistons from the factory are in the hole. Some are way in the hole. I've seen 20, 25 in the hole on some engines. More commonly, you see 15 to 18 in the hole more commonly. So one of the main reasons to zero deck a block is to raise the compression. What you're doing essentially is compression is figured by, how can I explain this if it's someone that doesn't speak engine? You guys that know, so I don't have to worry about you understanding it no matter how I explain it. But for those that don't know, think of it as airspace. Okay, let's use the term airspace. The amount of air that is in each cylinder is what affects or what creates the compression. I'm trying to say this so I don't confuse anybody. So let me put it this way. If you take the head, that where the valves sit up in there, that pocket, that chamber, it is a certain size and it's measured in cc's, and let's say it's 72 cc's. Well, when you put that on there, you have to kind of do a formula and all. There's a formula to do, and part of that formula is how big the valve reliefs are in the pistons. They all have to have valve release. I'll get into that in a moment. And how far in the hole that piston is. All that adds up to amount of volume inside that hole. That is your compression. The smaller you can make that area, the higher your compression goes. So by zero decking a block, you're basically raising that piston up closer. In theory, I mean, you're cutting the block down, so you're moving the block down, but you're moving that piston up closer to that chamber in that head, creating less airspace, which makes more compression. Okay, this head doesn't have any valves or anything in it, but this right here is your chamber. It's measured in cc's. And if we say that's a 72 cc chamber, a piston comes up, and the piston sets an angle so it comes up and meets this. Now the piston never goes that far up in there because it's in the block, so it sets way down here. And you see how that changes how much volume you can put in there? Well, now if we zero deck the block and move the piston up to here, and it only travels that much up in there, then that's more compression that you can make in the cylinder. So why do we want more compression? To a certain extent, compression is free horsepower, meaning the more compression we can make, the more power we can make. Now, there's debates about each point of compression, how much power that makes, percentage. I've heard all kind of numbers and stuff, but it really takes more than just compression. But more compression, more horsepower. That's an easy way to put it. So why would I not want a zero deck? Well, it goes back to, this is going to be a harder one for me to explain. So I may just have to say this, and you may just have to take my word for it, because I don't know any layman's terms to explain this. But the more compression you make, the more it affects the fuel that you can use. A lot of motors from the factory run a really low compression. It's common to see 8.5, 9-to-1 compression in a car you buy at a car lot. They do that so that it can run a lower octane fuel. You can run your 86, 89, whatever you have in your area, 83, whatever you have, and it doesn't hurt the engine in any way. When you go up high in compression, there is much debate on what that magic number is. But when you go up high in the compression, let's say 11.5, 12-to-1, let's say 13-to-1, then you start getting into the area where you have to run race fuel, like 110 octane. You will get detonation without it. You can get some of that pinging and stuff like that without it. And it's got a lot to do with the compression, and there's a whole big reason behind it. But basically, the higher the compression, the more expensive your fuel is going to get after a certain point. Now, there's debate. I have run 11 and a half, 12 to 1 on 93 pump gas and never had a problem. There's people out there that will swear anything above 11 to 1, you got to run race fuel. It's all debatable, and it's also all in how you tune your engine. That's a whole nother thing. You can tune your engine to run a lot higher compression with a lower grade of gas. You're killing power if you do that. There's a lot to that, but basically, you may not want to zero deck your engine because you don't want to run a more expensive fuel. Assembly lube when installing a cam. Let's talk about that really quick because there is a lot of information on it. Good information and some of it's not. You know what I mean? Assembly lube on a cam. If you're running a flat tapped cam, 1000%, put your assembly lube on there. Follow the recommendations. Put your assembly lube on your cam. I put it on the lifters. You go through some assembly lube. Now, this cam is not a flat tapped cam. This cam is actually a solid roller cam. With solid rollers, do you need to put assembly lube on your cam? No. You can get you one of them little pump cans and get you some good quality oil and just pump oil on it and assemble it, especially if you're about ready to run it. There is some debate on the internet on that. As you can see on this one, I put assembly lube on it because, well, I've got assembly lube laying right here from doing the rods and stuff, so I put assembly lube on it. It's not going to hurt it in any way. Is it better for it? Again, the internet will debate that. There is, when it comes to engine building, it's a lot like my take on the gospel. There's closed-handed issues and there's open-handed issues. When it comes to assembly lube on a roller cam, to me, that's an open-handed issue. I'm not going to argue with you over it. Do it however you want to do it. Just put something on it, you know? When it comes to assembly lube on a flat tapped cam, that is a closed-handed issue. Put assembly lube on it. To me, just like debating, you know, the Gospels, the resurrection of Jesus, closed-handed issue. It happened. I'll fight you on it. I'll die on that hill. It happened. There's open-handed issues on stuff, and you know, a lot of it is. I'm not even going to pick an example because people will want to debate it, but there's open-handed issues that a lot of people think are in the Gospels that are not actually written anywhere, but should you do them? Probably, but is it going to stop anything? You know, open-handed issues, closed-handed issues. Assembly lube on a roller cam is one of those for me. It's an open-handed issue. Just put something on it. Doesn't matter. Just put something on it so it's not dry metal on a bearing. Use whatever you want to use. All right, Betty White is coming together. I've got one headset on. Of course, got the timing chain set in, the cam in. Lifters are not in yet. I'll wait till last to do that. The head is just sitting on here. You can see it is coming together. But one thing I wanted to mention is timing chains. This one is a double roller. You can get a stock replacement, which is a single. You can get a double timing chain and you can get a double roller. A lot of people see a timing chain like this where it looks as though there's two timing chains together and assume or make the mistake of calling it a double roller. But the difference is, if you look, these have actual little rollers right here. These are little rollers. Not to be confused with a double timing chain. A double timing chain is simply the same thing as a stock timing chain. It's just a chain with links, but it's doubled up. I have seen way too many times people make the statement when selling an engine or building an engine that they have a double roller timing chain. And it's not. It's just a double timing chain. And they're not trying to lie to you. They don't understand there's actually a difference between the two. And when it comes to a roller timing chain, it's like everything else. You're taking away, hard word for me to say, hang on, parasitic drag. And that's lost power. Now, that may add up to be a tenth of a horsepower or something, but it is power. And it is power you're leaving on the table when you're not running a roller timing chain. So, wanted to mention that as we get a little further along in this. And now I'm about ready to torque the head down, put the other head on, and then we can set the intake on. We can kind of stand back and get an image of what Betty White is going to look like. Well, there we go. Miss Betty White is back together. Mostly. Now you'll notice a couple things. One, there's no oil pan, and there's no bolts in the intake right now. Of course, no distributor. But I'll get to that in a second. Let's just drink it in. All right, so two things. One, there's no oil pan on there. There's no oil pan on it because I don't have an oil pump. Now, I thought I had an oil pump. I built a lot of FEs. Matter of fact, I got to carry one to Alabama this weekend. I build a lot of FEs, so I try to keep all my common parts in stock. And I thought I had an oil pump. As a matter of fact, let's see if we can see. If you look right there, that is a box for an oil pump. Guess what's not in that box? Yes, apparently my parts department fella, it's me. Yeah, it's me. Thought that would be a good place to store header bolts. So just glancing at the inventory, of course, I thought I had an oil pump in stock. I do not. So got to get an oil pump here. No big deal. And then I'll be able to put the oil pump in, the pickup on, the oil pan on, and all that stuff. Bottom, it'll be buttoned up. Intake, I don't have the correct bolts. The Trick Flow intake uses a little bit different length of bolt than stock. And I just don't have any in stock. And it's no big deal. If you have a Tractor Supply near you, you can get any bolts you want, and they sell them by the pound. It's a lot cheaper to buy them that way. So, yeah, I got to make a trip to Tractor Supply and just grab a handful of bolts, and I'll probably grab a few pounds of them and just have bolts in stock, because underneath the box there where the oil pump is housing bolts, yeah, see, that's a bolt bin. Yeah. Welcome to my world. But anyway, Betty White is mostly together. Now, of course, we got to put the oil pan on, and I got to take the intake, set it back off, put the gaskets on, put the little plug in the front of it, or the little fitting in the front of it, the pan under it, and then set it down on and bolt it down. And it will be ready to go back in Legacy. It should run really, really, really well. It's the most cubic inch that I've ever ran. It should be the most horsepower I ever ran. Now, we can guess horsepower numbers all day long, but I'm going to base this off of a combination a friend of mine runs very similar. We're running different cams, and of course the cam will affect things. Different companies, and they both spec'd out different cams that they thought was correct for our setups. So he's running a little different carburetor than I am. There's a couple of little differences, but it's pretty much the same build. He is getting 1.7 horsepower per cubic inch. Holy crap. I'll be perfectly satisfied if this one does 1.5. If it does 1.5, per cubic inch, I will be over the moon excited, and it still will be the most horsepower that I've ran through that car. So that's just bench racing. We don't know 100% yet what it's going to do, but we've got we certainly do have a goal in mind, don't we? So now we just need to put it in the car. I gotta get some work done on that and get that moved out so I can get the car moved in and get it put in. But yeah, definitely Betty White is gonna be a bad bitch this time. Yeah, she bad. So I didn't talk a whole lot in this one. This one was kind of short. I did mention a few things, but just kind of got into it and got it put together and get it knocked out. She is back, and the next video you see on Betty White, hopefully it will be us firing it up in the car. Got a few little things we've got to change on the car to accommodate Betty White's new modifications. For one, we've never ran dual quads on the car, so we've got to, work on the fuel system a little bit. There's a few little things we're going to do. We're going to change the motor mounts. We're going to set the motor a little different in the car this time. Yeah, she bad. She bad, boys. Listen, if you haven't subscribed, please do. We're about to be balls to the walls on some racing content. Hopefully, even some drag and drive with Miss Betty in Legacy. So, if you have not subscribed, please do. You'll see some great performance footage and racing footage coming. You'll get to see Betty White's first time barking orders again. And we're looking forward to it. We really are. So I hope the Lord blesses you more today than he did yesterday. I hope God's good to each and every one of you. And if you haven't hit the subscribe, please do. Really need this channel to grow a little more to help pay for some of this stuff that I do. Oh, comment, like, subscribe, all those things everybody says. I really do appreciate it. Really do help. So God bless you, and we'll see you on the next one.
I'd say he's a nut job.